to LeJardin the garden. Well, the holidays are over, and our first northeastern is expected sometime today to start, and they're thinking of anywhere from 3 to 6 inches in this area, and 12 plus further in-state into the higher elevations. And for the Vermont and New Hampshire and Maine area, you may even get 12 to 24 inches of snow. So this is going to be a real northeastern for the New England states, and we're expecting a good amount depending on where you are in these particular states. Now, this is basically our winter program, and we have a number of topics that we're going to talk about. And basically, gardening has been put to bed, and relax, take it easy. The catalogs, the seed catalogs from the companies are coming in, and sometimes one year I got close to almost a foot of these catalogs, but a lot of them are going online now, and it's easier to go through what you want, and you can just do searches. But look at the if you do get the catalogs, they come with a lot of information that you may want to sit down and relax in front of a fireplace during a snowstorm and just think about what you want to do with your garden. Remember last year we talked about mapping out your garden, and now you should be pulling that map out and seeing what you planted in what squares in the garden. Remember, you have to rotate your crops. Tomatoes, beets, any type of crop should be rotated every year, and try to mix them up. But look at them, the catalogs are very creative, and also plan what you want to do. What you want, from looking at last year's results, you may want to select certain seeds that you want to read about, and get the disease-resistant ones, and maybe even the earlier ones. Now, the early ones are determinate plants. These are plants that come up to about 3 to 4 feet, and they produce fruit all at once, and they ripen all at once. Then you have the indeterminate plants, and think of it as a vine that this keeps growing and producing flowers and fruit, so it can go longer than others. Some will go anywhere from 75 to 85 days, and the shorter ones, or the determinate ones, will go to just about anywhere from 50 to 60 days. And one of those is the Siberian one, which is about 55 days, and it gives a good tomato for salads and so forth that you may want to let. Now, when you select these, look at the disease resistant. They all come with sort of detail on the type of diseases or fungus or bacteria diseases that you may want to get and grow. Or even when you get to the nursery, you may want to bring that list with you and pick the ones that they have that are on your list. And you'll enjoy the disease resistant plants. That one day you'll come out and all the plants are dead, or the leaves have turned brown, while the disease-resistant ones will continue growing through the disease attack. Order your seeds early, because I've noticed in the past couple of years, a lot of these seed companies run out of stock basically towards the end of March, and you'll be out of luck trying to get any of these seeds. What you may want to do when you order these seeds and you get them back, you want to organize them from A to B. This will be easier for you to pull them out and plant them in your containers in the home for growing your plants earlier. Also, while you're in front of the fireplace, the wood ash that's being generated from the burning of the wood can be used in your garden. But don't put the wood ashes makes the soil very basic, so it gives you a higher pH. So basically, you don't want to put 2 inches of soda ash, wood ash, on your garden. What you may want to do is just spread it out, probably less than 1/4 of an inch in the garden, and just use a rake and spread it out in the square, and it will benefit the plants very well. Also, you have interior gardening. You have indoor gardening. You may have gotten a lot of plants for Christmas. A lot of your friends may have said you're a gardener, you love these plants, and you're growing them indoors. And if sometimes you may have taken some of those chives or some of the onion scallions and brought them in and put them in a pot, and you cut them down to about 2 inches, and you can let them grow up, and you can harvest them during the winter. And ours are just about 4 inches, 5 inches now. We're going to be harvesting them in probably within the week. And it's also a good way to introduce children to planting. They can see the growth of the plant in the home and not being outside all the time, especially during the winter. So just be aware that you can grow some of these indoors if you brought them in the fall. Just keep them watered. When the soil gets too dry, take your finger and touch the soil. If it's bone dry, give it some water. And usually about once a week is good enough. And they should be in the window facing east or south to catch that low sun that comes during the winter. Now, you may have harvested some seeds, or you had seeds left over from the previous year. And the way to test that, it takes about a dozen seeds, put them on a paper towel, wet them, fold the paper towel up, and wet them some more, and just put them aside and just keep them sort of moist, and see what happens within the week. If out of the 12 you got 6 seeds that actually sprouted, you may want to plant a double up on your seed germination and growing them in the coming year, or indoor planting, because they may have lost their germination capability, and you want to have a double up on the seeds. Now, your plants in house should be looked at very carefully. You may want to actually dust your plants off. If you see sort of a hazy or white layer on your leaves, there's too much dust on the leaves, and it's interfering with the leaves' process of surviving. So what you may want to do is bring them over to the sink, take your spray unit on the sink, and just give them a quick spray, and that should really help them along. And also, again, we talked about overwatering. Once a week is good enough, and that should be your maximum amount. Now, exterior gardening. Now, we're expecting a snowstorm, so a lot of the snow will be clinging to the branches or to the greenery, especially with the yews and other green plants that are for like a fir tree, for some of the miniature firs. And what you want to do is take a broom and brush down and brush up and down and get the snow off the branches, so it doesn't snap, the weight of the snow doesn't snap some of these branches and ruin the form of the plants. So again, take a broom and just shake the plant, and the snow should come off quite easily. And look and see if any of the plants are damaged at this point, and also look up into your trees to see if trees have been snapped off by the heavy snow or wet snow, which becomes heavy and bends the branch. It may actually snap them or crack them. And you'll see the branches, instead of being upwards, they're sort of hanging down and moving around. And you may want to cut these off and make an adjustments on those. So just in January and February, get out during a nice day, walk around and look at the trees, and if there's snow on some of the fir trees or pine trees and so forth, just shake them off. Also, you may have, we're expecting, after the snowstorm, we're expecting another storm coming in, but temperatures are going to be in the 50s. And this temperature variation may cause an up and down movement of the soil. So you may want to go around to the perennials and just sort of tap around the edges of the perennials. So push that soil that's heaved up, push them down to prevent the roots from freezing. So just be aware of the surrounding area. And again, what you may want to do is get your children involved and plant some of those seeds that you receive early and let them see some of this. Now, what we did in the fall of last year, late November, close to Thanksgiving, the ground, we still had warm temperatures well into the upper 40s and 50s. We took some seeds and we took 4 types of lettuce, and we planted also garlic at that time, and we'll see what that results in the spring of this year. But once we planted the seeds of the lettuce, the 4 types of lettuce, we put a plastic cover over them. And we also watered the ground before we put the plastic cover around them or over them. And we put dirt around the edges to keep it airtight so we don't get cold weather into them. And the results is what you see here through the plastic. You'll see the moisture on the plastic feeding the plants, and these green leaves that you see are lettuce that are growing, and we're in early January at this point, and we may have a good crop probably sometime in February. We'll see how much snow and cold weather we get, so our fingers are crossed that we'll get at least something out of the plants, out of this seed planting. Our next concern that we have during the winter is our bird feeders. With heavy snow and so forth, a lot of the food sources for the birds that are staying around, and a lot of them seem to be staying longer than usual this year. What you want to do is get out to those feeders and push the snow or clean them up of snow and so forth, and begin putting some food for the birds. And try to see if to place feeders in open areas so we don't have any predators going after the birds for the food on the feeders. What's on the menu, you might say? Let's discuss some of these not plants, but seeds that you can put in these feeders. You can have fruit on these, especially some oranges or apples that are cut up, grapes, single or banana slices are good. That's something that you can use. Also, raisins are good. Cracked corn, you may have some leftover corn that you planted, you can put those out. We can also look at sunflowers. Thistle seeds are good. Sweet, be careful of these if you have dogs. Basically, the birds will sort of chop up the sweet, and some of this may fall to the ground. And like some of our dogs that we have here, they smell a lot, and they smell it, and it smells good to them. And then what they'll do, they eat it, and they may become sick on it. They may have diarrhea or some vomiting. So just be careful. If you do have animals, don't put sweet out for them. The seeds are still good for the birds, but sweet is off because your animals may pick them up. Other plants you can use are peanuts, even black oil sunflowers. These are black sunflower seeds that you can see on the package, and the birds sort of love these type of plants. Now, you may have received holiday gifts of plants, and especially amaryllis plants. Now, the flowers at this time should have faded out. What you want to do is cut the stalk off, and you may have long leaves, probably anywhere from 2 feet to 3 feet, depending on the amaryllis you have. What you may want to do, now the bulb for that amaryllis has lost all its energy by producing the flower and so forth. So this is a time to cut back those leaves just about to a foot and give the plant amaryllis some water at this time, and put them in a sunny location, maybe on the east side, because they need sort of a growing time now to recover from the energy that they gave for the leaves and the amaryllis. Now you'll feed you'll feed the amaryllis bulb maybe once a month with some liquid fertilizer, not too much, probably about 2 or 3 centimeters of material in a cup of, or probably a large glass of water. And when you water the plant, you have that material in it, and it generates the new energy for the plant. You'll actually see new leaves out, and you may even get a second flowering sometime in the late spring, even early summer. And it's quite fabulous watching it grow. And it's good for the children also, because they can see the leaves growing and the stalk popping up, and they can help water you and get them interested in producing their own garden in the spring. Next, we have time that we can use. Remember we talked about in the fall about putting your tools away and getting them ready for spring. This is a good time, if you haven't done it, go back to those tools. Those are the hoes, the picks, the shovels. If they have sort of a light reddish tinge to them, that's maybe rust, that you may want to scrape off and put maybe 3-in-1 oil or some type of oil on the shovels and the tools to prevent them from rusting and ruining your particular equipment. So think of that. If you have a lot of spare time, let's get those tools in good shape. Now, during the past year, we had plant diseases that we had in some plants. The zucchinis are a good portion of it, the tomatoes. That's why we're talking, you're looking at the seed catalog, look at disease resistant plants. Now, some of these diseases are fungi, some are basically bacteria, and others are viruses. Some are hard to go from plant to plant. Some of them will put off a spore that becomes airborne and attaches itself to its neighbor, or even in your neighbor's yard will actually infect those plants. So what you want to do, if you see some of the plants in the morning when you go out and check your garden and the leaves are sort of turning brown and turning white or different colors, cut those leaves off and throw them off site. Don't keep them on the property, get rid of them. And basically it's, when you do plant, do preventive maintenance and measures to prevent this type of infestation. And those are basically choose the disease resistance. That's at the top of the list. Proper spacing. Don't put them 3 inches apart. If a plant says they need a foot apart, put them a foot apart. Tomatoes, for instance, the lower, as you plant, some people will get 2-foot plants, but plant them deeper and take off the bottom 8 inches of leaves and just let the top go off. Because if your soil is contaminated, and when it rains, if you don't have any mulch on it, some of those spores that were in the ground will now get on the leaves and now will infect the plant, and you will have a diseased plant, and may really make it stunt the growth or even destroy the plant at that point. You want good drainage in the area. You don't want pools of water making the area water soak, almost like a swamp. Make sure the water is draining off at a good rate. Keep the weeds under control. Remember, we talked about rotate crops in the beginning. This helps. And try to control the insect population. You may have aphids, Japanese beetles, the tomato hornworm. We talked about that last summer, and we'll talk about it again this year when the summer comes around. But they also have beneficial insects. You have praying mantis, ladybugs, and you can actually buy these types of beneficial insects online. And when you get those catalogs, look for beneficial insect section, and they'll show you a variety of insects that you can buy with your seeds and put them in the garden or release them at a certain time during the garden, and they will help you and attack the harmful insects that are destroying or stunting your plants and so forth. Now, we talked about going out into, on good days during the winter, to look at your trees, looking up, see if there's any damaged trees, see how they're shaped. You could probably even shape them at this point, especially the smaller varieties or the stunted one, or even some of your fruit trees. You can do a lot of pruning. Grapes are good. The grapevines are good at this time of the year because if you do it in early spring, the warm weather, the plant begins to push sap forward, and then the plant, what we call bleeding, occurs after you cut the branches. Now, the plants are sort of on a sleeping period, and won't bleed at all. And by the time spring comes around, they'll be closed up, and a new growth will be growing along the edges. Now, but the trees have special aspects of it. We picked up some information about trees from the, where is this from? This is from the International Society of Arboriculture, and they have some fun facts about trees. Trees keep our air quality fresh by absorbing carbon dioxide and producing oxygen. Maybe this can be used for climate change and trying to plant more trees to absorb all this carbon dioxide that we're producing. In 1 year, an acre of trees can absorb as much as carbon as produced by a car driven up to 8,700 miles. Trees provide shade and shelter, reducing yearly heating and cooling costs by $2.1 billion. Trees lower air temperature by evaporating water in their leaves. The average trees in metropolitan area survive just about 8 years. A tree does not reach its most productive stage of carbon storage for about 10 years. Tree roots stabilizes the soil and prevents erosion. Trees improve water quality by slowly filtering rainwater, as well as protecting aquifers and watersheds. Trees provide food and shelter for wildlife. Trees located along streets act as a glare and reflection control. And the death of one 70-year-old tree would return over 3 tons of carbon to the atmosphere. Now, some of the tree biology. Trees are the longest living organisms on Earth. Trees and other plants make their food process called photosynthesis. The inside of the tree is made of cork, cambium, and xylem. And the xylem of the tree carries water from the roots of the tree to the leaves of the tree. One or more trees will move up to 2 to 6 tons of carbon dioxide each year. Now, one of the tallest softwood trees is the General Sherman, a giant redwood sequoia of California, and General Sherman is about 275 feet or 84 meters high with a girth, this is the size of it, of 25 feet. Now, they have a lot of information here, but we did a great deal of information that was given at this time. Now, the snow has been coming down quite heavy, and we're going to go out and take some film of it and show you what the first snowstorm, or the first northeastern that has occurred in the New England area, and what it's done to the plants in our particular area that we have around the community garden and the studio that we have plants outside. Until next time, my name is Robert Boissel in the program LeJardin, the Garden.